Hey guys, Sidger here, back for another video. So yesterday we were talking about Apple's patent on the new technology, or last month, or last episode. So this episode, we're gonna talk about Steve Jobs, or how Apple has changed after his death. So believe it or not, the iPhone SE or iPhone 5 is the limit for the size you could build in an iPhone 2. And in today's terms, we're like, wait, what? Yes, Steve Jobs proposed that and made that as a promise. And Apple has not been following Steve Jobs and not listening to him, but we do not know. Maybe Steve Jobs would have done it the other way. But in Steve Jobs' mind, there is nothing new but design. For example, the iPod was not new. The iPod was an MP3 player with a design that was actually good. Same for the Mac. He basically took the mouse, which Xerox made, took the Windows computers that were being made then, and developed the Mac. So, Steve Jobs is a designer. Yes, that's what I call him, because Steve Jobs basically takes what any other company made and just remakes it, makes it look better. And he was very keen on something. Steve Jobs believed that Apple was a premium company. And Apple is still overpriced, but nothing compared to how it was back when Steve Jobs used to be in charge of Apple. See, when Steve Jobs was in charge of Apple, overpricing was a lot. Like, have you ever seen the iPhone 3G? Have you seen how crazily priced it was? And he said, we do not want people who are poor or not gonna be a rich kid of Snapchat or okay. Whatever, he said people, we're not gonna make our products cheap. We're going to make it expensive. And that's actually something that a lot of people use today, because Gucci, Versace, Louis Vuitton, those lead clothing brands, all followed Steve Jobs' thing. We are premium brands, and customers will enjoy flexing our things. Well, I doubt flexing, the word flexing existed then, but you get it. Apple was a top class product. And Apple still is keeping up as a top class product. But if you guys have not seen, Apple has been reducing the price of their products. For example, iPads. Now you can get a base model iPad for $300. Back then, there was only one iPad you could get, which was $500. Just think about it. iPads were so expensive then. Another example, the iPhone SE. The iPhone SE is a mid-range smartphone that's good, but back in Steve Jobs' time, the iPhone SE was not something he would have done. Steve Jobs was seriously, or if he's ever to walk out of his grave, I don't know. Why do I think of these things? But if Steve Jobs was to ever walk out of his grave, he would look at Apple, see their iPhone SE and say, hey, what's that? What's that garbage? And, you know, the thing is, Apple has had a different plan always. But when Steve Jobs was there, Apple would have never be the iPhone SE. See, Steve Jobs believes that Apple should only enter the markets where the most priced products are. Back then, Android phones were not at the same level of iPhones. See, back then, there was no OnePlus who would be killing it as far as competition went. So, Steve Jobs was like, we'll make our phones and people will buy iPhones because they were actually better. Like, Android phones have come up a long way. Like, I'm an Android fan. I'm not an iPhone guy. Android phones are now better than iPhones. So for that reason, Apple has changed, but they might be doing it for the best since Apple's sales are still good. But Apple could eventually die if they do not find a direction to go. Super expensive, like Steve Jobs, or just like other companies. Alright guys, this is the end of the video. Remember, like, subscribe, check out my social media. Camera's about to end. Yeah guys, goodbye.